Hello, everyone, and welcome back to ITEC 4242 Database Administration, and a little bit of an extra video to kind of accompany the final project draft submissions that you all provided me. I just kind of want to hit up on a few things that maybe haven't been addressed as clearly as possible, or clear up any sort of misunderstandings or anything that's kind of like outliers right now. Now, as far as any sort of common issues that I saw with all of your projects, you're all unique snowflakes. As far as I'm concerned, there were a couple of projects that were really well defined. That I mean, you have like a couple sections that you can tell that you're still working on, you're still researching, you're still adding to, and really don't need much help from me as far as I'm concerned. There's a couple that there was definitely unclear expectations of maybe you didn't understand the business rules, or maybe the team project itself in its full scope. And I will get to addressing a couple of the concerns that I saw there. And then there were a couple that, I mean, like I had one that was pure code, and then there was one that was mostly just headers. And for those, I mean, you know that you've got work ahead of you, and I'm for open invitation for all of you. I'm more than willing to work with you to kind of answer any questions that you may have. You could spitball ideas at me, and I'm more than willing to work with you to kind of provide my perspective on it and give my take on it. So please take advantage of any and opportunity, all opportunities that are going your way. Speaking of which, we have these surveys out for student evaluations. If you have not seen it yet on D2L, I am openly inviting you to answer the survey, and we'll provide extra bonus points for the entirety of the class, not just like one or two people or those that have done it. Everybody gets free extra credit points if we get 75% of you submitting to the survey. I do not see who submits them. I don't know how the surveys are going right now. I know that roughly we've got about maybe about 15% of the class have submitted to it thus far. Now, to get into the scenario of the project, I had a little bit of an unclarity that at least one team had issues understanding what the scenario is. You are not the airline. You are a third party that is hosting. You offer the hosted solutions as shown right here, and you're not contracting out to another company to host for you. You are doing the hosting. So that might be something that you may want to rethink and reevaluate on your final project to understand your particular role. Again, you are the third party. You are not the airline. You're handling somebody else's database systems, their backups, their your own servers to host their databases. So there's that. Now, as far as business rules, I had a few individuals question me about this, thinking that I misworded this in some form or fashion, or that I confused the issue with the business rules. Let me assure you, I pored over these business rules to make sure that they were as accurate as I possibly could make them, so that you could create a final product. Now, in regards to in stock, this really threw a lot of people off, and I think that this is actually a good misunderstanding to have, which seems like a really oddball thing to say. It's like, oh man, it's good that we misunderstand each other and get things wrong. Well, in this scenario, it is, because I am approaching you from an end user perspective, and you are approaching it from an IT perspective. And in this particular case, when you have a misunderstanding like this, it's actually fairly common. You're going to be dealing with end users all the time that they're going to say things that are just like, you cannot process like what these people are saying. They don't make any sense. But at the end of the day, they are good at what they do, hopefully, and you're good at what you do. So you kind of need to bridge that gap and kind of meet somewhere in the middle. Now, to understand what I mean by in stock. Now, in stock isn't necessarily the same thing as it is part of your inventory. In stock means it's on a shelf available to put on an aircraft. It's not on an aircraft right now because maybe it's a brand new part, or maybe it was in maintenance at some period and it just got back into stock, but it's in good condition to be able to be installed. Now, why this is different from being on an aircraft, you want to have some sort of designation to say that it's available and not being worked on for the maintenance crew. For those that are working on your aircraft, they need to be able to know that they have a spare fuel pump or a fan blade or uh, any other part that you would find on an aircraft to be able to install it. I hope that really kind of clarifies things a little bit. It's roughly the equivalent of saying that you can't say that a part is in stock or available if it's flying thousands of feet above Cincinnati, for example. You want to be able to say that it's in stock and ready and available for whatever maintenance crew is working on an airplane that needs it. I mean, that would be the equivalent of taking a computer from one of your employees because somebody else needs a computer. I mean, it's like, well, they're working on it, they're using it, it's not in stock, it's not available. I mean, that's just not really cool. You're gonna have people complaining and having issues, especially if you somehow manage to get an aircraft mechanic up thousands of feet in the air, flying over Cincinnati, trying to dismantle an airplane just for a single solitary part. When you have paying passengers and pilots and crew and everybody else still on board, it's not going to work. All right. So, one last thing is the confusion of assemblies. Now, I kind of threw this in here. This was a mixed decision on my part to kind of throw you a little bit of a curveball. Now, I've tried to make this as clear as I possibly can. I mean, I even say it here. They may be considered parts in their own right, complete with a part number and serial number. And some of your teams have created a relationship between the part, the assembly, and the aircraft, where an aircraft part is on an assembly, and the assembly is on the aircraft. Well, if you look at the business rules, it could be installed on the aircraft directly. It does not need an extra assembly. So the important thing here is to track the number of flight hours per part involved. So what kind of relationship would make this work? Well, you could still have a one-to-many relationship between assemblies and parts, but it can actually be a little bit simpler than simply just making a separate table and trying to create more relationships that are necessary. So I'm going to actually pop open MySQL Workbench, and we can see a sample parts table. Of course, this is incomplete. There's more details to it, but this is actually pretty straightforward of what you're going to be looking at. And in this particular parts table, you'll notice that there's the foreign key, the aircraft ID, so that there is a relationship between the part itself and the aircraft that it's installed on, if it's installed on a particular aircraft at the time. Now, what happens if you actually add a foreign key, an assembly ID, to the parts table and simply have it reference itself. It can actually, you can have a table that has a relationship with itself that basically in assembly is just a big honking part that has other parts attached to it. The idea of an assembly makes installing and uninstalling uh, a sundry of parts easier for maintenance rather than saying I've taken off this fuel pump and this fan blade and this turbine and this other part over here. You can just say, okay, I just took off this engine off the aircraft, and you have a trickle down effect where you could have maybe one of your triggers look and see, hey, this assembly is being taken off. I need to make sure that all of the associated parts come off the airplane. Or you can create a procedure or a function or some manner of combination of all of these for your final project, since you are required to have each of the components that we have learned in the semester. Now, just to kind of give you a little bit of a reverse engineering look at this, I'm going to go ahead and type in the password. And I did this in the ITEC 4242 week 1 database, so you're going to see extra tables involved that aren't pertinent in any sort of form or fashion. But we can at least look at the parts table. And as you can see, we have the parts table right here that literally just has a relationship with itself. And you can choose to do it any number of ways. I mean, this is not a sole design course. That was part of database principles, and understanding the structures is more a part of that class than it is for this one, but you still have to have some level of understanding with it. So I'm going to leave you with that. If you want to do it this way and make your life a little bit easier as far as associating aircraft and assembly and aircraft, then that's good. If you want to do it the other way, just make sure that parts have their installation and removals associated with the aircraft as well, so that you can track the times. And that about wraps it all up. If there's any other questions or concerns that you have, I'm always available. You know, just make sure you email me as the best form of communication. I do accept D2L email, as you've seen. That's how I got you back your draft comments. If you have not seen your draft comments, just let me know. I will be more than happy to provide those to you with any other answers that you may be seeking. I hope you all have a good week as you continue working on your data warehouse research stuff, and as we get prepped and ready for the final review next week.